Hello. I'm pretty tired because for those of you that don't know, I went to Windscale today, aka Sellafield, aka Seascale, which is right up north in the UK, and I live in the south. So that was a 4 hour something drive. So I was basically up at 3:30 in the morning. Drove all the way up there. Spent a few hours at Sellafield, then came back. So I've only been in probably less than an hour. Yeah, it was an interesting day out. I did take a sample. It's not particularly radioactive or anything, but I thought I'd take a sample while I was there of like the seaweed, because the stuff that goes on there. And here's the interesting thing: the police decided to interview me while I was there, because poking around on a nuclear site with Geiger counters and a camera, they got a bit suspicious. So I'll put the pictures and everything in a proper video so you can see them properly. But I did get one really good picture actually while I was there, which was, if I can find it on here. This one, which is probably going to not look very good at all on the actual webcam. But those of you that know about nuclear disasters will know what that is. So yeah, spent a bit of an afternoon at Windscale, aka Sellafield, aka Seascale. Annoyingly, I didn't really get any good content with any of the Geiger counters because I didn't really get much activity from them. And obviously, when the Royal Nuclear Constabulary took an interest in me, I thought it was probably time to stop doing it. But it was interesting. I'll get a video film tomorrow where I put a load of photos on some of the video bits I filmed and basically explain everything that happened. But yeah, pretty interesting getting loads of armed police turn up because you're walking around a nuclear site with a Geiger counter. Yeah, interesting thing. Let's just see if there's any other pictures on my phone that were particularly good of it. I mean, I did take quite a few, so obviously it's finding ones that... There's another one where it's pretty recognizable. Take my driving license, took my dad's driving license, questioned us. Basically took a lot of details. That would be completely dishonest, Oliver, so I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I'll cover it all in a video. But yeah, it was pretty interesting because yeah, it's sort of funny, isn't it? Where technically the law says if you're on public property and you're taking photographs, and doing whatever, you're not breaking law, but because of terrorism laws, you sort of are. But the police are all very professional and nice. It's the same thing you always get with cops like that. I think as soon as they realise you're not really going to cause harm to anybody, they just get quite chatty. Yeah, you've said it twice now, Keaton. We're talking about Windscale here. But that's interesting. What compass is it? But there's lots of compasses that do that, if they're the old radium marching compasses. All right, fox sickness. Sadly, not Altrix, because he's on the Discord and everything else. I think he's just a kid that can't help himself. But yeah, so I'd love to AK-47. Couldn't do it this year. That's why I went to Britain's Chernobyl. Yeah, looking at this, I don't think there's really any reading coming off of this, unfortunately. But it was still interesting. This, Ian explains, I said seaweed from the beach. But yeah, so for those of you that don't know, I'll give you a TLDR. In 1957, Britain's nuclear reactor for enriching plutonium for nuclear weapons set on fire and spread massive amounts of radioactive fallout around the countryside. So today, my dad and I, because we thought, fuck it, why not, went up there with some Geiger counters and stuff like that, you know, cameras and everything, to get some pictures and readings. That bit was interesting, but then the police were kind of interested in what we were doing, because, you know, post 9/11 you can't do anything like that for fun, because it must be to do with terrorism. I'll have to look that up, Oliver Overson. So, Secret Vault Channel. Let me have a look at that. Is this some sort of urban exploring person? If so, I've just found their channel. But yeah, I could imagine why, if they were doing urban exploration sort of stuff around, you know, military sites, why that wouldn't go down well. But yeah, there were signs all over the fences there saying you can't fly drones in the area. Well, back in the day, obviously, there's nothing going on with them now. They're just contaminated, you know. But yeah, they have these signs on the fence. If it focuses. There you go. Oh, and now, of course, it breaks the lighting. Right, thank you, Istvan. When you made your stupid comment the other day, I gave you the benefit of the doubt, but you've been doing it twice in a row now, so you're obviously doing it to be a dick, so goodbye. Yeah, that's the thing, AK, with obviously Fallout, it doesn't just stick to one area, does it? It gets carried by the wind. All right, Sparrow? Completely depends on what it is, Oscaris. There's not a simple answer. It's like, what's worse, being shot or being shot? 3, Luke. Well, originally 1, and then obviously, like, he had to call in 2 more to check all the IDs and that in a vehicle. But they were friendly and everything. Don't get me wrong. You know, they weren't like really accusatory. I think it was just more because if you're Royal Nuclear Constabulary, and obviously post 9/11, post all this terrorist shit, you know, if somebody's wandering around with a camera next to you know, Britain's biggest nuclear site, they're probably going to get a bit wary. But I think once they realised I was just there because I found it interesting, you know, and I let the guy look through the photos I'd taken on my camera, and then he was satisfied I wasn't taking pictures of, like, you know, police officers or, like, you know, the guard patrols. I was actually taking photos of, like, the reactor buildings. Sellafield, Daniel, aka Seascale, aka Windscale. You know, like the actual Sellafield plant, because you can walk around the outside of it. It's just they don't particularly like the fact you can walk around the outside of it. Because basically it's where, obviously, inside is MOD or whatever property, but on the outside, it's just like public footpaths and roads. But they don't particularly like the fact that you go around those roads. Oh, because Oliver, to try and pretend that nothing happened there that was bad. You know, because every time there's a disaster, just rename it. Yeah, that was the thing, Justin Vapor. That's what we were kind of saying to them, that, you know, at least they are taking it seriously. Because, you know, if they look into something, it turns out to be a false report, they say, you know, have a good day, you know, and all that, and let you get on. That's probably a bit more reassuring than if they just completely didn't, you know, take notice of anybody filming it and taking photos and whatever else. Today, pretty much like 1 microsiever. It was really low there. They've obviously done a good job cleaning it up, but bear in mind you can't go inside the perimeter. The really high readings will be inside the fences. Yeah, that's the thing, military bushcraft. The weird thing was, I think directly there now, the readings aren't that high, because I think a lot of it's gone further down the coast. It's just coming up to 8 p.m. Ian, but obviously bear in mind I was up at 3:30 a.m. this morning to do all the driving. So I'm pretty tired because of that reason. I probably slept 30 minutes last night, if that, to get up at 3:30 a.m. to then drive 4 to 5 hours down to the Lake District. But yeah, there's a lot of contamination because of Sellafield all along the coast of the UK. Yeah, but the thing is, every time I actually end up talking to police and people in person, they always end up thinking it's pretty cool and aren't worried about it. Yeah, I'm going to edit it together tomorrow. I'm not going to do it tonight just because I'm too tired. But yeah, obviously I won't include anything when I was talking to the cops that might pose a security hazard for obvious reasons, just because I'm not a cunt that's like, oh, I'm going to post stuff online because I can, just for the sake of doing it. But anyway, I know this isn't going to look good because it's isn't edited, but these are all the proper pictures I took. So that's like Seascale itself, the bit all along the beach. Going the wrong way through the thing there. Hang on. So that's number 1 reactor, the one that's set on fire. That's probably one of the best photos you're actually going to get of it from outside of a proper documentary, because after the police talked with me, they're like, oh, if you want to take a picture from here, just take a picture from here, They were actually quite good about that because they realised I wasn't doing anything dodgy, so they were going, oh, if you want to get a good photo, get a good photo. I'd say, Lou, within about half a mile, but bear in mind they don't like the fact that you can get that close to it, even though you're not trespassing. So yeah, there's obviously the reactor, what's left of it. Some barrels dumped on the beach, which might have nothing to do with it. And then, obviously, a lot of these won't show up very well on the back screen, but more pictures from different angles of the number 1 reactor. So, for those of you that don't know, the number 1 reactor was the one that set on fire, that the disaster came from. The number 2 reactor has since been dismantled, because basically the number 2 reactor, they dismantled it and they are able to take it all apart, because the number 1 reactor was the one that had the fire. That's why it's still standing, because it's essentially a bit like, with Chernobyl's sarcophagus. They're keeping all the dangerous shit entombed inside it. Yeah, it's a two-sided thing, military bushcraft, because the thing is, nuclear power, if used responsibly, is an amazing thing. The problem is, if you cut corners of it, it's like the worst thing ever. As in seaweed taken from Sellafield. Very high TXC gaming, I imagine, because it's one of those things where people can now and again go in there to take readings, film some stuff, and that's it. It's a bit like, the stuff they do in the number 4 reactor building. Like, scientists will occasionally go in to take readings and, get some footage, and then they just leave again. No, but it was that same sort of culture of, covering stuff up, Oliver, that led to the problems, because when the scientists working there were reporting problems prior to the fire, they were told to mind their own business. Because it was that sort of thing of, how dare you claim that our reactors aren't 100% perfect? Yeah, Lou, any workers on nuclear sites have limited time, and they have dosimeters on to basically measure how much they've absorbed. Yeah, the Google Street View is pretty good, because obviously you can see around a lot of the perimeter, and you're not going to get somebody come up and demand why you're there. But yeah, basically, what you have is the town of Seascale, the village of Seascale, which is like a mile down the coast from it, south. And then Windscale, or Sellafield as it's called now, was basically the plant, or, like the nuclear research site up the coast. You can't go there anymore. I wanted to go there, but it's all fenced off. That's completely, back in the 80s, journalists could go down there. or regular people could go down there with measuring equipment. Now it's all fenced off, probably because they don't want you measuring what's coming out the pipe. While they weren't power-producing reactors, they were plutonium enrichment reactors. Literally, the point of them was to make nuclear bomb material back in the 50s. And then, they caught on fire and they were abandoned. But then this was also a period where Britain was just using nuclear power plants in general to get nuclear sort of fissile material and, just trading with America. But when the Windscale cores were made was when America wasn't sharing any Manhattan Project sort of information. So everything Britain did was basically its own research. Yeah, it's confusing, Marcus, because basically Sellafield and Windscale, originally it was just a nuclear weapons producing plant. Over time, it grew into bigger sort of just nuclear research and nuclear reprocessing. Now the policeman was saying to me they have like 10,000 people employed there. And that's everything from cleaners, scientists, technicians, literally everything. I don't know if in that 10,000 they were including all like the regular security guards and the armed police security. Wow, A-Truck Campbell, that's why there's lots and lots of armed police around there. Yes. They deconstructed Reactor 2. They can't deconstruct Reactor 1 for the same reason they can't really deconstruct Chernobyl Reactor number 4, because it's a massive radioactive pile of waste, basically. And leaving it... The reason you'll see the scaffolding around it in the pictures, basically, as much as they won't admit this, I believe that's basically because... Right, if you see on here... this isn't a very good picture because this is one just taken from my phone like a mile away. But you can see there's loads of scaffolding and that around the piles now. The reason they've done that, I think, is just to basically stop anything falling off of it, to try and just keep everything that's still inside it and still inside it. But yeah, the thing is with the Windscale reactors, they were never designed to produce power. They were literally there to enrich plutonium for nuclear weapons. Yeah, the Windscale Fire is one of those things where people either don't know about it or they don't think it was very serious, where it's actually kind of horrifying the more you read into it. Because obviously the Windscale Fire itself, if you compare it to Chernobyl, it was nowhere near as bad. But the thing was with Windscale, it was leaking nuclear particulates into the environment for about 3 years prior to the fire, and they covered it up. And the fire in some ways was a blessing because it meant the reactors got shut down. But prior to the fire, if you lived in the local area, there's a reason the children had leukemia at much higher rates. We don't really get earthquakes in the UK, Altrix, at least one's not very strong. But yeah, what if you built a nuclear power plant on the sea and then a tsunami happened like in Japan? It's not good, Well, officially, Lou, they probably said it was fine. Unofficially, there was lots of things done. They found lots of like defects and all that, and then it was just covered up again. 3 Mile Island was a US reactor leak, which wasn't very serious. The meltdown was serious, but the containment building kept nearly all the radiation inside. So 3 Mile Island basically demonstrates why, if you have good containment buildings, what could be a horrible nuclear disaster can basically be averted. Because with 3 Mile Island, there was a meltdown, but the containment building stayed intact. So barely any radiation got out. And that's why you build containment buildings around nuclear reactors, unlike the Soviets. And then, of course, you blow up your reactor, not just melt it down. Not for a while, Marcus. I mean, obviously, stuff from the early 50s is being declassified now, but bear in mind, like I said, my dad's uncle had kids that got leukemia because he was a soldier witnessing the nuclear bomb detonations in Australia. And the government still denies any of the nuclear veterans that, it was because of the bombs that their genetics got fucked. Whereas everybody with a brain knows that there might be a common factor between all these servicemen who watched the nukes go off and then had lots and lots of genetic problems afterwards. It was the radiation. But, the government will constantly deny it because they don't want to pay compensation. So, it's that kind of shitty thing that, I think deep down everybody knows they've done stuff like that, but they just pretend it doesn't happen. There's other kind of low-scale things, Lou, but the Windscale Fire is the big one because it's ranked in like the top, worst nuclear disasters in history. There's been lots of things, like nuclear stuff gets lost, nuclear stuff gets spilt, that seems to happen everywhere. But Windscale is kind of one of those awful ones of there is literally a fire spreading nuclear fallout everywhere and they don't know how to put it out kind of thing. It would have been even worse, Radiac Maniac. The filters weren't very good, but it was better than nothing being there. Yeah, which one have you seen, Justin Vapor? The very good BBC one is called Our Reactor is on Fire, and it's from 1990. There's been some subsequent ones, but they're not actually as critical over like the design flaws of the reactor, which is why I like Our Reactor is on Fire the most, because it literally goes into how they knew it was leaking, stuff like strontium-90 and plutonium and polonium all over the, nearby sort of countryside for years. And the scientists were told to basically shut up and not say anything about it. Yeah, that's what they do at Sellafield. It's literally stored there en masse, and stuff that can be recycled is recycled. Otherwise, it's either dumped, dumped, or it's just stored on site, on an ever-expanding site. The fans never broke down, though. It was just an overheating problem to do with Vigner energy, basically due to criticality. I imagine that they could set up all of the fans if they needed to on backup generators. I'm assuming they've completely thought of that. Because it was literally markers for enriching uranium. Later on, obviously, they figured out ways they could, have power come off of it and still, get fissile materials for bombs. Originally, these reactors were designed purely to output, like 100% bomb material, just because Britain was really paranoid about not having nukes. So the Windscale reactors were literally made just with the sole purposes of like mass producing bomb fuel. Historically, though, what most nations did is they just used then like civil nuclear reactors to make some uranium-235 and plutonium on the side. And that's how most nations did it. But yeah, back then, Marcus, the interesting thing is when the Manhattan Project happened in, like 44 or whatever, nuclear energy wasn't really a considered thing then. Nuclear energy came about a lot later as a concept. And Windscale, I think they started designing it like 47 or something. And, this was back when they didn't even think about nuclear power as power. They just thought of it as making bombs. Maybe if they get the money, but, I'm sure if they can keep kicking that can down the road of not building a containment structure over it, they won't build a containment structure over it. Cheers, Crispy. I've just had a bit of wine since I've got in, but as I said, long day. I'll be off in a few minutes just because up since 3:30 a.m. I'm sure they can think of a way in the future of getting fusion to work as a power source. They can make fusion in bombs, so surely they can make it as a sustainable, power source. I'm not really sure, Daryl, I'm afraid. For me, medium is fine. Like, I'm either small or medium in 3M masks. At least for half-face respirators. Essentially, 7 Beetle of Doom, it is just boiling water, isn't it? Especially with water-cooled reactors. But yeah, the idea is steam turbines. But the idea is basically that you've got a huge amount of energy coming off of something due to it kind of being unstable. Yeah, it's really interesting tech, isn't it, Swaggerino? I hope they can kind of make stuff from that, because it'd be nice if fusion could be used for, like, energy, not just blowing people up. Smalls fit me fine, Daryl, I found with 3M masks. It's like medium is a bit too big, small is a bit too small. I'm kind of in that weird middle area, but they only do 3 sizes as far as I'm aware, small, medium, and large. Yeah, I've never seen a proper guide for 3M masks. I can't show guns on the stream, as said over and over and over again because of YouTube policies. If you want to see it, watch my videos on it. YouTube policy literally says on a live stream you cannot show anything firearm related content wise. There's the one in Scotland, which I forgot the name of because it's a confusing name. There's the one on the southeast, Dungeness. There's definitely a few more, but there's not loads. Britain recently only moved away properly from coal, but we do actually make quite a lot of energy from wind, apparently. But yeah, nuclear power plants are very, very efficient for making power for like the size of them. The issue is if something goes wrong, something goes badly, badly wrong. Don't bring up politics on these streams unless it's... Yeah, Hinkley Point. Thank you, TXE. That's another one, isn't it? Tell you what I'll do to all the mods is I'm just going to put the word OnlyFans as like a blocked word, just so if anybody does it, it instantly hides their comment. Just because it's a kind of weird spam thing now, isn't it? And it's just getting fucking irritating. If you want porn, why are you on YouTube? I don't know, Lou. People started spamming it a couple of streams ago, and then the fucking idiots couldn't stop, and then they had it coming, you know. It's one of those things where nobody is talking about it in the stream. You know, I don't have one, just for reference. If I did, I'd be making more money. But, you know, it's that kind of thing of people just constantly spamming it because they think it's funny, I guess. And it's not funny. It's like it just derails the topic when we're talking about gas masks or whatever else. You didn't really bring it up, Lou. I'm more on about the people that kept spamming it, you know, and then got blocked. The only thing, Daryl, I can suggest if you're not going to buy a proper PAPA system made by an actual nation is just to buy a camping mattress inflator and then find a way of bodging filters onto it. I know that's not a very scientific thing to say, but they work quite well for like £20. But anyway, I'll be off now, as said. I know it's not been a very long stream, but I was up since 3:30 a.m, up mostly yesterday as well. Drove for about 5 to 6 hours today. You know, plus walking about, plus dealing with the police, plus filming stuff for YouTube. So I am really tired. So thanks everybody that's come on and been sensible. Tomorrow I will start editing together the video about Sellafield, just because it'll be interesting. But have a good evening, everybody. Goodbye.